God damn it.
I'm glad I caught that. Right as it happened, I was like, record.
Nice.
Why is this always so hard?
Guys, intros are really hard.
They're so hard. I think this is a perfect intro. Welcome to the Fic List.
Yeah! Woohoo!
The podcast where we seriously read and review fan fiction that we send each other.
100% sincere.
Absolutely. We're not making fun of it because we love it. So, what are today's tags, Erin?
Today we are reading Hurt Comfort, which... Ooh.
Ooh.
Who doesn't love a hurt comfort? And also the AU for today's episode is fake dating.
Oh, so good.
So good. Who doesn't love a fake dating? AU.
Why don't we launch in with the first tag? We're going to start with Hurt Comfort. What's Hurt Comfort, Erin?
Hurt Comfort is basically any story where someone is like gently suffering. And somebody else is like, it's okay, I'm here for you. We're going to make you feel better and it's going to be fine. It's the equivalent of, like, just a little peril. For a Monday night.
The slightest amount of peril that's possible.
Just a little peril. But also, the flip of that is, like, the idea of somebody comforting you.
Right.
So you're hurt, and then there's comfort. It's fairly self-explanatory.
Right. Which is much different from real life, where it's just hurt.
Okay.
Woo! Hot takes on a Saturday morning.
Yeah.
It's not morning. It's fully afternoon.
It is 3 in the afternoon.
Can you tell that I woke up and then immediately jumped out of bed to get here?
Yeah. I woke up at 11 a.m. this morning and went, fuck, I still have one to read.
And of course it was the longest that I sent you.
One, but it was really good. Anyway, so we're going to start with Hurt Comfort.
Yeah.
What did I send you?
You sent me... That's a good question.
I forget.
You sent me... Took All the Trees and Put Them in a Tree Museum by orbingarrow on Archive of Our Own. It is a Marvel Cinematic Universe fic. The summary is, Steve's homesick for the past, and Tony can't cope with the present. Moving on is easier when you aren't doing it alone. And it starts with a dictionary entry of the word nostalgia, which I kind of really love when fics do that. Like, right at the beginning, you're like, ooh, this is going to be important. It's a theme.
Yeah.
I really liked it.
Yay, that's good.
I enjoyed myself. So the whole thing is that, and the summary is a good starting point, but Steve... Rogers, is that his last name?
Yes!
Woo! Steve...
Proud of you.
Thanks. It's Steve Rogers, post-Avengers 1, goes to the Smithsonian every Sunday because they have an exhibit of all of, like, Captain America stuff. So it's like his old journal where he used to doodle things, his radio and stuff. And he essentially goes and he's nostalgic about it and thinks about how he really wants his stuff back. Because he knows he can't go back in time to it, but he would like to have just a little bit of it. And I don't know exactly... Oh, yeah, so he reads the plaque and realizes that it's like on all the items are on loan from Stark Industries. Because I guess Howard Stark had something to do with Captain America. I think it's the first Captain America movie?
Yeah, if you remember the first Captain America movie, which Alan doesn't,
I
but
do
it's
not.
fine. Howard Stark is part of the team that turned Steve Rogers into Captain America.
Oh.
He helps.
Well, in this story, Howard is dead.
He's also dead in the movies, eventually.
Spoiler!
There's so much that you don't know.
Oh,
Alan.
so much. A ton.
Context is helpful.
Indeed. So he finds out that all those items are on loan from Stark Industries, and he is like, well, fuck. The person who is running Stark Industries now is Tony Stark. He wants his items back, but the choice is, do I want to go and beg Tony Stark to give me my stuff back when, we're not on friendly terms? He's just going to make fun of me. And then I think what was it, like months? He was going to the Smithsonian for months, and then he's like, at one point he's just like, I can't take it anymore, I need to. And he like marches into Stark Industries, and there's this whole bit where he gets to the front desk and they're like, do you have an appointment? And he's like, no, I don't. And they're like, well, what's your name? And he's like, Steve Rogers. And they're like Captain America?
Yeah, and he's like, yeah, can we not talk about
Yeah,
that?
please, can I just get upstairs?
Humble Steve.
Humble Steve. So
Sounds like a band name.
It does.
Humble Steve and the Cordettes or something.
What was our band name last time? The Warm and Fuzzies.
Oh, the Warm and Fuzzies. Humble Steve and the Warm and Fuzzies.
We're just gonna keep adding to this title. So he goes to Tony, and Tony's actually like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. But the stuff in the Smithsonian is all fake. We have the real stuff. Storage. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
I'm remembering this, Vic, as you're describing it back to me.
Yep, I was like, Erin doesn't reread these, so she relies on my summaries. And Tony's real cool about it. He's like, yeah, you want your stuff back? You can have it. And then there's like this whole moment where Tony essentially reveals that Howard Stark idolized Captain America to the point where like he neglected his son.
That's definitely a fandom thing.
Is it?
Yeah, I think it might come from the movies or the comics or something, but like that is a very common trope in this, particularly in like Stony fics.
Stony fics? Oh my god. Yeah. That is the best ship name.
No.
Oh,
Do
no.
you know what the best ship name is?
Please enlighten me.
Captain America, Iron Man,
oh no,
and the Hulk. Stark Spangled Banner. It's the best.
Stark Spangled Banner.
It's so good.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Kudos to whoever first thought that up. Kudos.
Yeah, that's my favorite ship name of all time. But Stoney's pretty good.
Right. So while Captain America is there, he's talking about this collection of paintings or like fan art he saw online, and he was like, they're beautifully made and stuff, and he's like, I wish I could buy them, but I couldn't find the artist. And so Tony, of course, he's like, Jarvis, find them.
Yeah.
And Jarvis is like, here you go. I found him in like 2 seconds. Do you know how to use Google, Steve?
He's like, no.
What is Google? And he like projects them up, and Tony sees his own, and it has the portal that he went through in Avengers 1 in the background. And that triggers him, and he has, like, this panic attack, and he, like, rushes out, and he's like, I gotta go, I can't be here right now. Captain America's just, like, waiting for a while, and he's like, Jarvis, where is he? And Jarvis is like, he's up in his room, and I can't reach him. He's overridden the doors, I can't, like, the elevator won't go up there. Yeah. But Jarvis is like, here, follow these arrows, and then, like, lighted arrows appear on the ground, and he's like, follow them up this, like, back staircase, and, like, the door was unlocked, and he goes, and essentially Tony's talking about how he has these panic attacks about certain things, and hang on, let me find the quote, because there's something that he says that it's, like, of course, the cutest thing.
Is it the, like, so I was your first thing?
That sounds totally not.
That's not it.
You know, it's...
context is crucial in understanding that sentence, because it's not what you think it is, but I said it for dramatic effect.
Right, so it's when... so Tony's talking about... explains to Cap, after Cap has essentially put an arm around him and let him shake into his shoulder. His very broad shoulder.
Chris Evans, who doesn't want to be comforted by, like...
Honestly!
Evans, right?
Oh, God.
Chris Evans, if you ever listen to this podcast...
Please!
Please let us know!
Woo!
We hope this isn't weird. We're really sorry.
Yeah. So he's talking about how Tony is explaining that what was his trigger, though. It was the art. And he talks about how he used to have a lot of panic attacks when he was a child, but he hadn't had them for a few years. But then going through that portal brought them back. And Steve says, oh, so Howard made you tough them out. And Tony was like, no, he would have had to be around for that. I had to deal with them on my own. And Steve says... well, you shouldn't have to. Huh. And it's like the cutest little like... and then he's like, well, I won't be around every time, but, you know, at least for tonight, let me stick around. We'll order some pizza or whatnot and watch movies. So that happens, and it's so cute. And then the following week, Cap is, like, in training or whatnot, and then he gets a text message from Tony where he's like, can't make it through this one on my own. And Steve, like, drops everything and gets on his motorcycle, because, of course, he rides a motorcycle. Yes. And he, like, speeds over to New York, which, by the way, he's living in D.C. and traveling to New York, and they make it sound like it's a 2-hour drive. It's, like, 4 hours. It is, it's a distance.
It took me 6 when I drove it the last time.
If you get traffic. Yeah, if you get caught in traffic, you're fucked.
Oh, it was bad.
Yeah. So, yeah, it's very sweet, and he goes again and comforts Tony. And, like, it's so cute, because at the end, he leaves or whatnot, and he says, and for the first time in months, he realized it was a Sunday and he didn't go to the Smithsonian. That was like clutching my heart. It was so sweet.
You're like, oh.
So loved all of that. I was fully on board, and then this is the moment. It's the only like small gripe I have with the fic is that it felt like it jumped very quickly into where, oh, sorry, I'm skipping a really big part too. At some point after the first comfort, Steve goes up to upstate New York to get his stuff, and, well, 2 days afterwards, actually, because he was busy at work. And then so I think it's like a Wednesday or something. He shows up and Tony Stark is like waiting for him. And he's like, you must not have really wanted your stuff if it took you 2 days to come and get it. And Steve was like, I have a life. I work.
He's like, have you just been here the whole time? I'm worried about you.
Yeah. And so he's like, I thought you were going to leave with Banner because you had like a project or something. And he's like, no, he didn't need my help afterwards. And, it's like that thing where like, I see you, Tony. I see you.
You're not slick.
And then they go into the storage unit and Cap looks at his stuff. And before he even like opens the boxes, he just looks at the stuff in his boxes and he realizes that it's not going to help because he's nostalgic for his life or his past. And he knows that having these things isn't going to help. Like, it's just things.
It doesn't bring back the people that he misses and all of that.
Right. So he's like, I think I made a trip for nothing. I don't want these things. And Tony's like, well, the best hamburgers are like 2 miles away, so at least have a good burger. So they go out and have burgers, and it's the cutest thing in the world.
I love a good burger.
We love a good burger pick.
Burger picks are fantastic. Also, diners. Anytime diners involved.
Yes. Oh my god. I need to add that.
Okay, let's be real, though. Like, as friends, Alan and I talk about this all the time, but dear listeners, we are going to involve you in the truth that is, diners are the quintessential American dining experience.
Oh, absolutely.
And they are the best thing ever. There is
good.
Nothing that can compare with the comfort of a diner to, like, pretty much anybody who grew up in America. I think it's, like, such a quintessential, like, comfort thing.
Yeah.
And also they're cheap and usually always open.
And the portions are huge.
Portions are there. Like, the diner is always there for you. That is the best part about the diner.
Oh.
Love it.
The diners.
The diner has never let me down.
Absolutely. And there's something about being in a diner that just makes you open up to people. Like, you just have the best conversations in cars and in diners.
Yep, cars and diners.
So yeah, they have their little fic, and then it's the second comfort where Tony sends a text message and he's like, hey, I can't go through this one by myself. Mm-hmm. And Steve drops everything, gets on his motorcycle, and like rooms all the way over there.
We're going to neglect the distance thing.
Correct, yeah.
It's fanfiction, we're just going to let it go.
Suspension of disbelief.
Yeah.
Then it gets a little like, ooh, to me, where, and I don't even fully understand what happened, but I think he's at training with S.H.I.E.L.D., Steve is, and then he gets a call to Nick Fury's office, and so he goes, and in the elevator, like the elevator is rerouted, and he hears Tony's voice being like, what does he say? Oh, it starts blasting the Star Spangled Banner.
The Star Spangled Man was a plan.
That's what it is, I'm sorry.
Which is the song that Steve used to have to dance to.
Oh!
Because I don't know if you remember this from the first Captain America movie, but basically when he first became Captain America, one of the first things that happened was an assassin came to when he was transformed or whatever, and shot Dr. Erskine, however you pronounce his name, the guy who actually turned him into Captain America. And so the whole project was basically shelved, and they made Steve go around selling war bonds.
Oh.
Like singing and dancing and being like a showboat for the army.
Ugh.
And he canonically hated it, and that was his song. And he would always like punch Hitler in the jaw, and that was like his thing.
Wow.
And he was just like, I really don't like being a goofball in tights for this like bullshit.
Right.
And that's when he decides to like, he hears that Bucky has been captured and is like, I'm out!
Yep.
And goes.
Well, Tony plays that on the elevator, and he knows that it's Tony, and then like they start flirting through this elevator intercom, and then Fury also somehow gets in on the intercom, and he's like, get a room, you two. And so the elevator's rerouted all the way to the roof where Tony is leaning up against the helicarrier being like really cool or whatnot.
Oh, I see what you're saying. About
Yeah.
being a little quick
and then Tony was like, I'm doing a grand gesture like for our first date. I thought it'd be good because a few months have passed by now. I'm sorry, I didn't realize that, but a few months have passed between Second Comfort and now, and they've been like hanging out more. Yeah. And Tony's like, so I'm gonna take you for a really great first date. And Steve was like, I thought the world's best cheeseburger was our first date. And Tony's like, oh, we've been dating for 5 months and you didn't think to tell me, which is a great line.
Yeah.
They're like, well, so we'll have a great second date, and it ends.
Yeah.
And I was like. It just felt like very quickly like, all right, we're going to tie this bow up. I feel like this fic could have either been a little longer and like gotten to this point more gradually, or it should have stopped before this. Because this is a really cute gesture, but I don't know. It was a really like sudden shift in pace. And I was like, oh.
It's almost what I would refer to as a button.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, and sometimes you don't need the button.
Exactly.
And that's totally fine. I think it's cute. I think it's a way to, like, wrap
Absolutely.
things up, and it's a classic fanfiction
Of
thing.
course.
So it's fine, but I totally hear what you're saying.
Yeah.
Like, maybe it wasn't necessary.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Overall, though, so cute, adorable, had great moments, great lines. I was there for it. Mm-hmm. I will go back to this.
Yay!
I enjoyed it.
I'm always pleased when you like the things that I say.
Yeah. Like, so far, I don't think there's been one that I've been like, bleh.
Because I'm the critical one.
Absolutely. Understood that. Yeah, I'd give this, I'd say a good, like, 3.6.
Nice.
Yeah, I enjoyed it a good amount. So let's talk about the one I sent you.
Which was Nightmares?
Nightmares.
Cool. So this one is called Nightmares by Keep Lovin' Anyway on Archive of Our Own, which is actually like a name that we can pronounce. So thanks, buddy.
Thanks.
It is part 4 of an ongoing work, according to the tags. So I don't know if that's just like different one-shots or what.
Yeah, they're all like different one-shots.
I didn't read the other ones.
I read like one.
Because I started reading these very late last night.
Thank you for your commitment to the podcast.
I do all of my work at the last minute. That's how I am as a person. My mother would be so disappointed to know that nothing has changed. So I'm going to read the summary.
Please.
Tonight is one of those nights where Phil jerks awake, heart pounding, but Dan is right there, and he calms himself with toast and tea. Misspelled.
Correct. Tea like t-shirt.
Tea as in t-shirt, or golf tea.
Or golf tea, yeah.
Not tea as in the drink. It's fine, we'll overlook it. It's a night where he stares down at the nightlife, letting himself think about how it hurts, how it is allowed to hurt, how it really is an awful experience for a partner to know that your boyfriend wants to be dead sometimes. Oh, also, trigger warning.
Yes.
Right now, this fic does deal very specifically with suicidal ideation and like living with a partner who experiences suicidal ideation. If that is triggering for you, if that's not something you want to listen to right now for any reason, you should definitely skip ahead and not listen to this discussion. We will not be offended. Go listen to other reviews.
Listen to the next tag.
Yeah, go to the next tag because this one gets a little dark. And
yes.
We know that's not for everybody.
Right.
Continuing the summary. Phil wakes up from a nightmare in which Dan attempts suicide and contemplates how Dan's suicidal thoughts have affected him over the years. That is a pretty accurate summation of this.
Yeah.
And it's a little darker than I thought you were going to go, which is fine.
Yeah.
I just don't typically read suicidal ideation fics, not because it's particularly triggering for me or anything like that. I just tend to be like, it's more of a bummer than I want. I'm like, no, I just wanted gentle suffering. That said, this is pretty damn well written.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot read T, spelled T-E-E, and not cringe.
From the beginning, just the... was it every time?
Yeah.
Oh, no.
This person doesn't know how to spell the word T. It's okay.
Yeah.
We're gonna learn. I also don't watch Dan and Phil on YouTube. This is RPF, otherwise known as real people fiction, or real person fiction, which we should talk about in a minute. But because I don't know them or their work, I had to like Google what they look like, and I was like, oh, it's these people on YouTube, but I don't like them. So it was hard for me to get into it because I think it's a little easier for me to like get into things that I know a little bit better.
Yeah.
Which fan fiction. But that said, it is really well done. I think this author either has experience with or did a lot of research on what therapy is like, because this is very well handled from a mental health perspective.
Yeah.
When you're writing about suicide, it's very easy to like make it really over dramatic. But this was very thoughtfully done and very well done, I thought.
Yeah.
Early on in the fic, Dan sort of reveals to Phil. So Phil is having a nightmare and like reveals that he's had nightmares ever since he was a little kid, but they had kind of come and gone, and now he's with Dan and they're together. And at one point, after coming home from therapy, Dan had said, I had to sign a contract that I would still come next session. And Phil's like, what do you mean? Is that a normal thing in therapy? And he's like, no, I had to sign it because I have to be alive for the next one. And Phil was like, what? Like, basically doesn't say anything, but is like deeply thrown by this, as I think anyone would be.
Yeah, it's shook.
Yeah, is shook. And they sort of talk it through, and they like, but Phil starts to have nightmares about Dan dying. Basically, like, pretty graphic ones about him, like, slitting his wrists and things like that. Oh, T is spelled right there.
There we go.
Good job. We get there eventually.
You know what that's called? Growth.
What I did like also was that there was I always love when fanfictions create fake, like, screen grabs and stuff.
Oh, yeah, like iPhones, yeah.
Yeah, or, like, they go the extra mile.
Yeah!
To, like, make it look real.
So good.
And talks about this one incident where Phil was, like, traveling, and Dan has a bad day, and is really manipulative. Basically says, I just want to jump out the window, and Phil's like, what? Like, don't do that. Like, no, and freaks out, and then Dan is really not.
And I think it's, like, during the holiday season, too, or something like that. He's with his family.
Yeah, so Phil can't get to him. Like, he's far away, and he's trying to figure out how to get home and how to keep him safe and all that, and he can't. And then Dan basically is like, no, you're not coming. Like, I don't want you to come home.
Yeah.
And Phil's like, I'm coming anyway. And he's like, I'll do it if you come home. which is really gross.
Yeah.
But a thing that could happen, and they talk about how manipulative that was and how it was like really unsafe and unhealthy,
Yeah.
and how they had to work through it, which I kind of actually really appreciated.
Yeah.
Sometimes, I think because fanfiction is predominantly written by folks on the younger side, although that's not exclusively true, there is an idolization of some unhealthy relationship behaviors. And in this case, like, Dan didn't really get a pass for that one. Like, they had to work through it, which I appreciated a lot, because that is a manipulative behavior that, like, would not be okay in real life. So eventually, he's like, it comes back to the present moment where Phil's, like, recovering from having this really awful nightmare of Dan being dead, and he gets up and makes himself some tea and toast.
Spelled however you would like.
Spelled multiple ways. And then Dan wakes up and is like, wait, you weren't in bed. What happened? So he just kind of like snuggles into him on the couch or whatever.
Yeah.
And they talk and it's cute. Dan's like, come back to bed. Like, I'm falling asleep. And then they go back to sleep and it's okay. So it's very short, hurt, comforty. Out of 5, I would also say somewhere around the 3.5 mark for me. It was good. Solid. I probably won't go back to it, but that doesn't mean it was bad. You know what I mean? So good choice.
Thank you. What really pushed me to choose this one, because I was looking for a long time, was it dealt with something that I feel like is not often, maybe not often dealt with, but often dealt with in this way. And I did read I think the next one in the series, or the one right before this in the series. And the author's talking about how this is their experience. Like, they had this relationship where they were with a partner that was suicidal. And the other work in the series is also really interesting. Essentially, it's also Dan and Phil, and Dan says, I'm sorry, I remember that, like, I've been thinking a lot about this 2-year period where I was just god-awful to you. And Phil's like, I don't actually know what you're talking about, or, like, I think it was fine. And Dan is like, no, take some time and, like, think about it, and it's fine. And Phil starts to remember, and he would make videos about things that went wrong, or, like, today you did this, and, like, this is how I felt. And so he went and rewatched that huge catalog of videos, because it was a 2-year span, and it was cathartic, and, like, it released all the feelings that he had, and he was like, I am angry, and I am sad, and I am all of these things, but I love you, and, like, someday I'll show you those videos. It's a really interesting look into mental health, and not just mental health that is your own, but, like, how it can affect other people. So I was really interested in that. I think what's interesting here is that the comfort didn't really necessarily come from Phil. It came from Dan at the very end, where he's like, hey, let's go back to bed. It's so interesting because Dan is the one with the suicidal ideation, and, like, is the one who was in the fic, like, really not in a good place mentally, and he's the one providing comfort. Yeah. It was just interesting to me.
No, that is really interesting. I also think it's kind of great that fanfiction is a safe space in a lot of ways to deal with some shit. It's one cathartic outlet for people to really process their own lives and their own stuff that's going on. So I think it's cool that, like, this author was able to use this as something healthy and cathartic for them.
Exactly.
So it was a good choice.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. Glad you enjoyed it.
For sure. Can't complain. You do choose good things. Well,
every now and then.
I have my moments. Other choices later,
I don't like it when you do this.
It's fine. We gotta have a little drama.
A little drama.
Just a pinch of drama.
Great. So let's move on to the next, the AU tag.
Oh, yeah.
Which is fake dating.
I love fake dating.
It's so
I love fake dating. It's so fun.
Great. Thank you for the theme song.
You're welcome.
That's how we're doing it every week. The one you sent me is... hang on, let me find it.
Is it Brooklyn Nine-Nine?
It is. It's Brooklyn Nine-Nine fic between Jake Peralta and Amy Santiago. It's called For You Are My Fate by Lymans on Archive of Our Own. And the summary says... Amy has had a lot of great ideas in her lifetime. Telling her cousin she's dating Jake Peralta and he'll definitely be attending her destination wedding is not one of them. AKA, the one where Amy and Jake pretend to date while pretending they're not really madly in love with each other.
That is an accurate summation of this fic. Like, that is a correct summary, and I'm here for it, and please tell me you enjoyed it as much as I do.
Okay, so... I don't think I enjoyed it as much as you did. Fine. It's because I'm not in the Brooklyn Nine-Nine fandom.
True.
I've seen a few episodes, early episodes too. So before I imagine all of the, like, cutesy, like, flirting and, like, the tension, like, started filtering through. So I just remember them always not liking each other.
Oh no!
And it was like I was having trouble thinking about it. And this fic relies so heavily on her ex-boyfriend.
Teddy, her
ex-boyfriend Teddy, and his ex-girlfriend's
Sophia.
Thank you. I was like, Sophia or Claudia. It's one of those two.
Sophia is played by Eva Longoria.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Did not notice. I saw the picture and I was like, oh, she's very pretty. And with like the...
Gorgeous.
Yeah, she is.
I literally watched that show and I'm like, can Andy Samberg pull Eva Longoria?
Apparently not. Well, I mean, he did, but...
Yeah.
And then it didn't end well. So, like, so much of the fic relies on that and, like, their past together that I felt like it was a little hard for me to get into it.
Sure.
I think that is a really good summary. Amy's cousin, what's her name? Alexa?
Alexis or something?
Yeah, Alexa. Her and her cousin Alexa have been competing, like, all their life. And, you know, that classic trope where Amy got a 3.9 and everyone was like, good for you. And then Alexa comes with her 4.0. And, it's that. Essentially for forever, and then Alexa announces that she's going to get married to Asher, and it's like, God. Ugh.
There are some stellar, awful fiance names, and Asher is top of the list.
Absolutely. Yep. No offense if your name Asher. I'm sure you're lovely.
Offense if your name Asher. Also, Ian.
Oh, I love a good Ian.
I've never met a good Ian.
I've never met an Ian. That's what I think.
Don't.
And then Alexa announces her engagement, and this was while Amy was dating Teddy, so Amy was like, ugh, great. Well, I mean, at least I'll have someone to go with. Yeah. And so she, like, RSVPs that she's taking a +1 to the destination wedding at Anguilla in the Caribbean.
Yeah.
And then months later, when she gets the actual invite and she has to book, like, a hotel, she's like, oh, fuck, I no longer have a boyfriend.
Yeah. Me and Teddy have broken up.
It did not work out.
It's bad news bears.
Yeah, bad news bears.
I cannot go alone.
Exactly.
Because that will be letting Alexa, whatever her name, win.
Yeah. And so she goes to get the dress for her with the bridesmaids, because of course Alexa needs all the bridesmaids always.
Or is it Alexa?
It's Alexa.
Okay, it is Alexa.
I actually read it recently.
Yeah, I did. I was like, oh yeah, I really like this one. Sad. And I do really
That's
like
great.
it.
Yeah. So she goes to get the bridesmaid dress with all the bridesmaids, and Alexa's like, can't wait to meet your boyfriend. What's his name? Yeah. And like all the bridesmaids are intensely staring, and Amy of course panics and like, his name's Jake Peralta. Yeah. And so... As you do. And Amy's like, fuck, now I have to like think of how to tell them we broke up or something. Except when she gets back to the office, Jake is like, why did your cousin Alexa just Facebook message me saying that she can't wait to meet me?
Yeah. And Amy was like, well, fuck nuggets.
Fuck me. And so she like tells him everything, like she shoves him into some like records room. Is like, this is what's happening. And Jake's like, all right.
Records room is a thing on the show.
Oh, good.
That's where that comes from.
I'm glad. So she tells Jake this is what happened, and Jake's like, all right, I'll do it. Like, I'll go. Free vacation. And Amy's like, you sure? And they're like, yeah. So they go, and it's with everything you would expect. Also, Amy's family is huge. Is that canonical?
Yes.
Jesus Christ. At one point I had to be like, I can't remember relationships. It's too much. I need a map.
That's fair. You're like, please send me your ancestry.com.
Please.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was too much. I was like, I don't know who's married to who has children, who's sleeping on whose couch. Yeah. It was a lot. So that was another portion of the thing. It was just a lot of characters that I didn't know. I couldn't really connect. There's a whole bit of where they go to the beach, and it's like, Jake asked if Amy wants him to rub like suntan lotion or like sunblock on her back, and she's like, yeah. And then they like both get boners. Yeah. and then the big thing is like they kiss, and like it's about to get down, like they're both drunk at a club, and they're like, oh, like, this is real, we're gonna do it. And then he gets dragged away by her brothers, because her family loves her, which I loved that dynamic. I love a good, like, my fake date is, like, impresses the family.
My mom is so down for me being with this person.
I love those. That's so good.
It's such a good, like, dramatic tension.
Yes, absolutely.
Because, like, no one wants to lie to their mother.
And it's one of those things where, like, your mom can usually tell when you're lying.
Yeah.
So if she's like, oh, you guys are so happy together, then you're like, fuck, am I happy? So they're at this club, and like they're very drunk, they kiss, and then the brothers drag him away to like do something for like the bachelor party for a second. Mm-hmm. And she's holding his phone, because she's holding both of their phones in her purse. And then she hears the phone go off in her purse, so she grabs it thinking it's hers. It's actually Jake's, and it's a text message from Sophia being like, hey, you're right, I miss you. So she freaks out, and instead of being a normal person and being like, hey, you just got this message, we just kissed, can we talk about this? She freaks out. She's drunk also, so I can't blame her. But she gets in a cab, and she's like hyperventilating. The taxi cab driver gives her like a paper bag, and she's like, goes into her room, and
doesn't
like,
do anything, but
moving on. She like panics, goes into her room and like sleeps it off or whatnot. and then leaves very early the next morning before he's awake. And she has this whole existential crisis where, like, but he was so happy with her, and, like, he was devastated when they broke up, so of course he's gonna be...
Eva Longoria, she's
absolutely
beautiful.
Oh, I forgot. And no, she's, like, still conscious when Jake walks into the room that night, and he finds his phone and checks it and sees that he has the text message, and she hears him, like, call her and be like, hey, just got your message, and then he closes the door to the balcony, and she starts to cry, of course, and it's, like, so painful. I was like, no, I'm so sorry, baby.
Oh, precious baby.
But yeah, then she, like, the next day, she's, like, talking to her dad. I don't remember who gives her the piece of wisdom.
Her older brother, I think.
Yes, you're right. It's the older brother who's, like, really observant and is like, I know that you guys aren't together, but,
he's like, I am aware that this is all shady.
because there's always one.
Yeah.
There's always one.
There has to be somebody who picks up on it.
He's like, just talk to him, and, like, so she goes back into her room and essentially jumps him, and everything is okay after that. And then the last chapter, I think, is like 3 years later, they're getting married, and it's so cute. They're, like, on a rooftop and stuff. It's adorable.
It's a show thing.
Oh,
yeah.
So I enjoyed the fic, but I felt like it dragged in places that, like, it didn't necessarily, like, there was a lot of angst that I was like, it is not necessary. You can trim it.
Alan! The suffering is the best part.
No! I love a good, like, cutesy moment. And that's where I live. Very different aesthetics.
You gravitate towards different part of the hurt/comfort. Whatever.
You are the hurt, I'm the comfort.
Exactly!
So yeah, I just felt like it could have been trimmed a little more for cohesiveness.
That's fair. It is quite long for what it is.
I just feel like it really detracted from the experience for me because I am not super familiar with the tension and, like, the established relationships and stuff. And
so maybe what you should do is go watch Brooklyn Nine-Nine after I don't know how many times I've
depending on how many fanfics you start sending me of Brooklyn Nine-Nine, I'm gonna have to at some point.
I'm sending you fanfics of things that you need to watch.
Oh.
This is me being like, you should do.
So for the next two episodes, it's going to be a lot more Marvel and a lot more Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Well, that's what I read, so...
Right. So overall, I'd give this a 3.2.
Okay.
I liked it.
Well, I'm glad that you didn't, like, hate it.
No, I did not. So let's talk about the one I sent you.
The one that you sent me was called That Sounds Fake But Okay, which is, like, kind of the greatest.
I kind of love that.
Titles are, like, funny. Summary, it's by Dancing on the Ceiling. Again, things I can actually say out loud.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. The summary is it's One Direction.
Yeah, it is.
RPF. So you sent me multiple RPFs.
I'm sorry.
It's fine. I don't mind RPF. I was pleasantly surprised by this fanfiction. Like, let's put it that way. I also finished it 8 minutes ago. So the summary is, Harry Styles is a rookie journalist forced to work the gossip desk at a major New York magazine. Louis Tomlinson is the A-list actor who doesn't appreciate Harry or his articles.
Louis.
Oh, is it Louis?
Yes.
Well, I read it wrong the whole time. Okay.
There is a you.
Louis Tomlinson. Basically, what happens is that Louis Tomlinson is an actor, and he has a kind of shit reputation because he's, like, fairly recently come out and been a partier and sort of, like, one-night stands.
Yeah, like a party boy.
Like, party boy for a while, and his publicists are like, you have to settle down a little bit. Like, we need a little bit of good press. We're going to set you up with a fake boyfriend. Mm-hmm. So they go to set him up with this, like, rising musician, Cam something or other.
Yeah.
And they hire New York Weekly?
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
New York Weekly to publish a crafted story about them, and this is presented as sort of like a thing that happens. I don't know if this is a thing that happens in the celebrity world. Presumably it does. It happens in a lot of fanfiction.
I'll let you know when I'm famous.
Yeah. If you hear about me and Alan on some, like, romantic tryst, it's
definitely
fake.
Definitely for the press.
It is 1,000% fake. So they hire the New York Weekly to very specifically cover this blossoming romance story. And Harry Styles is the reporter who is attached to this contract.
Right.
Harry's like, I just want to be a real journalist. This is some bullshit. Like, I went to journalism school to, like, write about, you know, like, war correspondence and all these real things. And now I'm, like, here writing dribble. And I'm like, all right, chill out. You have a job.
In New York. Yeah. We know priorities.
I was like, you can make your rent. Shut up. But anyway, so he's all grumpy. He's trying to get with his coworker Ben and, like, not being super successful at it and just having a rough time. So he goes and writes this, like, pithy little piece about Louis Tomlinson and this Cam musician guy. And when Louis reads it, he's like, this is bullshit. Like, he's so mad. He was like, yeah, I agreed to do this, but, like, he's made me out to be this, like, uber romantic, a little like sappy, like pushover, and I hate it.
Yeah, and so we should mention he has like a anger issues.
Yeah, he definitely has anger issues. So he starts a Twitter war with Harry Styles and is like, next time you want to write lies about me, at least make them good. And so his fans start like going after Harry, and he's just like, motherfucker. Like, what is this? He's freaking out. He's like, I had 8 followers on Twitter before this. As anyone in that situation would freak out.
Right.
So he kind of retaliates and is like, well, next time give me better material or something like that. Like, they're being sassafrasses to each other. And so eventually they meet. Cam backs out of the contract. So they're like, well, fuck, like, how are we going to solve... His manager's like, how are we going to resolve this situation? We still think you need to fake date. Like, this is still, like, we're kind of up shit's creek.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, what if we spin it so that Harry and you have been dating this whole time, and the whole Twitter war was, like, an inside joke gone a little too public. And they're both like, no, absolutely not. We hate each other. This is bullshit. We're not doing this. Oh, but, like, the night before, or at one point before they reach this point where Cam has backed out, Louis and Harry bump into each other at an industry party or an event, a bar somewhere.
That's what it is.
And Louis gets legitimately sick, like stomach flu, puking in a back alley, not doing well, and he's, like, not going to be able to get home safely. So Harry's like, no, truce, like, I'm taking you home.
Yeah, he's like, well, fuck me, get in the cab.
Get in the cab. He's, like, puked on 4 times. Yeah. He's like, this is fine.
Poor thing.
So he takes him home and, like, you know, gets him in bed. And
cleans
like,
him up. And
cleans him up and is like, I'm going to take you, like, we're at an impasse. Like, this is never going to make it to anybody else. Like, I'm sorry you're feeling so poorly.
Yeah, and he stays there the night to, like, make sure that he doesn't drown in his vomit or anything.
Yeah, it's like, I don't really want you to die.
And as he's leaving the next morning, and he gets caught by the paparazzi, like, leaving his building, and that's why the managers are like, well,
we have an opportunity.
Yeah, like, there's already the Twitter war.
So they turn it into, okay, well, we're going to fake date for 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
And they both agree to it, albeit reluctantly. And then, over the course of the fic...
Of course.
They have a lot of banging sex.
Yeah, they do. So much sex.
So much sex. It's actually really, really well done.
Right?
It's actually great. They start off just kind of like friends with benefits kind of thing, where Louis is like, you know, I will prove to you that sex can be meaningless. Yeah. Which is always a fun...
It's such a good dynamic.
And Harry's like, I'm romantic, but sure, whatever.
Yeah, he's like a little baby, like... Okay.
He's like, yeah, but like relationships. And Louis like, no, meaningless one night stand.
Yeah.
So they kind of like get each other off essentially. Like, don't really have a relationship, but it totally blossoms into like a real
for sure
very quickly. They both get in way over their heads very fast, and then, you know, the people around them can kind of tell that something's wrong, or like some of them can and some of them can't. They meet each other's family.
Yeah, because like their closest friends know that they're in this arrangement, so they know that it's fake. But when they start like fooling around, a few of them are like, wait a minute.
Like, the higher up managers don't realize, but they're like Harry's roommate and friend
Liam and
is like very clear. He's in the band, right?
Yes. So Liam is Harry's like roommate, and Niall is Louis' assistant. Yeah. They're both in one direction.
And this must be post Zane's departure.
Apparently, because he's not mentioned at all.
And I was like, he's the only one I know.
See what you missed out on, Zane.
Yeah, some zany little thing. How many times do you think that man has heard that joke and wants to punch everyone?
Oh, a million times, I'm sure.
I'm so sorry. You'll never hear this, but I apologize for what I just said.
Twitter war starts.
Twitter war. It's like, please don't do that. I'm so sorry. Yeah, so, like, this was very enjoyable. It was very... I love a good slow burn.
Yes.
And this had some elements of some slow burn, although they did start banging right away, but, like, the emotional slow burn is almost better than
it's, like, so gratifying.
Yeah, because you're like, oh, sweet honey children. You know that you are compatible, but you will not admit it. Yeah. And, like, because, you know, Louis has this ex, Aiden. Aiden is also a fantastic name for a gross ex-boyfriend. Fanfic writer.
Correct.
Because have you ever met a good Aiden?
Never met an Aiden.
Anyway, so Aiden comes along and is, like, a publicist, and they had, you know, Louis had been with him, like, in a legitimate relationship with him for a long time, but he wasn't out publicly. Yeah. And they broke up because he wasn't willing to come out publicly.
Because Louis wasn't ready.
Yeah, he was like, you know, my career's just taking off, and, like, my publicist wants me to be as neutral, i.e. straight, as possible.
Exactly.
And Aiden broke up with him because he was like, well, I don't want to be closeted, and this is bullshit. So they broke up, and, you know, ever since then, he had been kind of on this party boy lifestyle or whatever. And then Aiden shows up around and is like, well, I always assumed that if you were going to have a real relationship and be public about it, it would be with me. And Harry punches him.
Because it's so great because he shows up and he's like, to confront Louis and be like, hey, what the hell? Yeah. And Louis is like, oh, no, you got it wrong. It's fake.
Yeah.
And it's the same night that Louis and Harry had just been texting like, hey, come over at 7. We're going to have sex. Like, no more hand job, blow jobs. It's like actual penetrative sex.
Yeah. Well, also, he was like, when are you going to let me kiss you?
Oh, that's right.
Let me kiss you. And Louis was like, tonight, 6 o'clock. And he was like, motherfucker. And like showed up. He was like, I am here for this.
But Aiden beat him to it.
The ultimate cock block.
It's the worst. Yeah. And so then Aiden like tells Harry like, oh, hey, you don't have to like pretend to be like the caring boyfriend because I know. It's cool. Don't worry about it. And of course, by this point, Harry is like, no.
Harry's like, I don't want to admit it, but I have stronger feelings for you than just fake dating and kind of screwing around.
And they go to this like club, and they're all together because Louis can't just hang out with Aiden because then people will be like, who is Louis hanging out with without his boyfriend? So Harry goes so that they can hang out. And Aiden gets very like handsy with Louis and like is grinding up on him on the club and like clearly provoking Harry. And that's one of those moments where usually in fanfic, like the character will be like storm out angrily and the other character will follow. Not in this one. Harry literally punches him and it's the best.
It is so satisfying.
It's so good.
It's so good. And it's well done too. Because he like has the right reaction, I think. And I mean like a reaction that I think is really fits within the scope of the narrative where they've set up Harry to be very like pacifistic and he's the Dalai Lama is his quote, his bio quote on Twitter. And then he literally punches a guy in the face and has like a moral crisis. And like, oh my god, what have I just done? But I'm also very drunk and very angry and like I have a lot of conflicting feelings. I'm gonna knock over a whole shit ton of plates on my way out because fuck this bouncer who's taking me out. And then they're like, we're gonna charge this to your boyfriend's card. And he's like, fine, fucking do it. And then he like goes out into the alleyway. Louis is like, what the fuck? Why would you punch someone? Like did I drive you to this? Did I make a pacifist punch someone in the nose? And he's like, no, I shouldn't have done that. That was really bad behavior and like blah, that was really shitty. And then they like have more sex. That's like the resolution of everything. By the end of it, Louis and Harry confess their love for each other, whatever. Yep. And then Harry basically, they have like one final night together after they've sort of said, we're together and it's great. Yeah. And then the next morning, Harry pieces out, like leaves the country. Yep. And I was like, what the fuck is this? Yep. What is this? So he like drops everything. He decides that he doesn't want to work for this company anymore because it's like really like a bunch of shit has happened and he's not happy with it. So he joins the Peace Corps and goes to Nepal and doesn't tell anyone. So he just like up and leaves and then literally there's like a flash, like a freeze frame and then it goes 6 months later. Yep. And I'm like, what the fuck? So yep. The ending was a little unsatisfying.
Yeah, that's fair.
So he goes to Nepal and is doing like Peace Corps stuff. And then Louis is miserable back at home and they're like, you need to get over it. Like you need to pull through this. Like we're gonna do this. We're staging an intervention. Yep. Harry-vention. Yep. And then they basically conspire to be like, you know what? Fuck it. Go after him. Like, clearly you still want this guy. Like, you need closure. We're going to Nepal. So they get on a plane, and they go to Nepal, and they find Harry, and he professes his love for him. Like, his true love for, like, actual, like, I love you. I don't just want to bang you. And he's like, really? And then they get back together, and then that's the end of the fanfiction. Correct. And I was like, guys, this was so good right up until then.
So close.
Yeah, so close. So the last chapter was less than stellar for me. But overall, it doesn't lose out too bad.
Yeah, it doesn't like mar everything.
Yeah, it's fine. So I think this one is a solid like 3.8. This is well written enough that like if you changed the names and published it as like a screenplay, it would 100% turn into a movie.
Oh, for sure.
Like Hallmark would snap it.
Hallmark would snatch it.
It would be so good. Do we want to talk about RPF as like a thing?
We should. I feel like I didn't even realize that I had chosen RPF. I mean, like, obviously I did, but it was just like, oh, this is such a good fiction. Boom. Sent it your way.
Yeah. So, like, I come from band fic, primarily. Like, that was what got me into fanfiction in the first place.
For sure.
When I was 13, Green Day had just come out with American Idiot. And my little heart went to pitter-patter. And I read a lot of, like, Green Day, Panic at the Disco, The Academy is, Fall Out Boy. Wow. So, I think until I got into Glee, I was primarily a fanfic person. Yeah. So the idea of RPF being problematic or otherwise weird didn't even occur to me until somebody said it later on Tumblr, where it was like, RPF is really problematic. And I was like, everything on Tumblr is problematic? You need to justify your position. But there is a point to be raised that like, there is a difference between taking someone's characters and writing new things for them that may or may not be, canonical, and taking real people and putting them in fictional situations that may be, contrary to their personalities or their wishes or whatever. So I don't know. I think it's a complicated question. What do you think about it?
I don't have a problem with it. Like, I'm not like, it's wrong or whatnot, because if you look at, there's a lot of things that, so I think of like Hamilton, Lin-Manuel Miranda's Hamilton. Everyone loves it and like it's revolutionary and stuff. That's essentially fan fiction.
Hamilton RPF.
Exactly, because like he's taking
happen that way.
Exactly, he took real situations, real people, and like wrote a narrative around them, like that romanticized it or that like made it cut out all the ugly parts of like the characters that we don't talk about.
It's a musical AU.
Exactly.
American history. Lin-Manuel Miranda, that's a hot take. We want you to respond.
Please. Twitter war. So like there's a lot of art out there that essentially does this. Maybe not all of it is that good, but like you look at movies or books that are like, oh, based around like the life of Virginia Woolf.
Right.
And it's like
true story.
Exactly. It's like it's all things that are real, and then you change it to become art or entertainment, and people don't bat an eye. I think where the problem lies is when people, obviously fan fiction readers and people who are in fandoms, can get a little passionate, a little vocal.
A little bit.
And then you start harassing the people. Yeah. And that's when it gets dicey. And I was like, well, no. There's a point where you have to realize, like, Louis Tomlinson and Harry Styles are never going to be together. Because that's not the reality. And that's okay. Let them live their lives. And if you like to read these, like, on a Sunday night while you eat a half pint of Ben & Jerry's, then that can be your prerogative.
Is that what you do?
No comment. But yeah, so I think that's where the problem lies for me, is like when those lines start blurring for you and like, I don't know what's real and what's not, and like, I'm gonna get really angry and like tweet and like all of this, then that gets rough. And it's also a thing of like, when people don't realize that what you do online matters. Like when you tweet something and you're like, oh, but it's just a tweet. And I was like, well, yeah, but it's like, it's real people.
Someone read that. Like the person involved read that.
It has consequences.
Yeah.
So that's where it gets dicey for me. Is it bad? No, because everyone does it, and that's fine.
I'm with you. I think that's a good way of sort of parsing through it. I do think it's interesting that there are some celebrities who actively engage in the fanfiction culture.
Right.
There is a reality where someone might come across your fanfiction of them.
Absolutely.
And I think when you engage in that way, when you are a celebrity, like that kind of comes with the territory.
Absolutely.
Because you become a public figure, and it's about the utilization of your public image, not necessarily you as a person.
Exactly.
But when it does start to negatively impact your life, when people start harassing you,
yeah.
That's when it becomes problematic, and that is deeply unfortunate.
Right.
That's not cool. But like, live your RPF life.
Absolutely.
Like RPF is great, and also like sometimes it just makes for really good content.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, do I read Chris Evans' RPF? 1,000%. Would I ever tell him that? No. Don't listen to this podcast.
Hey, Chris Evans.
But maybe do.
Right.
I don't know what I want you to do.
Bring Dodger over.
I have unclear expectations about what I want the relationship to be. Anyway.
We definitely need to do fake dating again, though, because
it's such a good trope.
Well, yeah, that, and so I found this other one that was like, it was almost perfect, like where I was like, this is it. But it was for a fan. So a little look behind the curtain. We do 2 episodes at a time, and we choose 4 fics for the 2 episodes. I had already chosen this fandom for one of the other fics for the next episode, and it was the same fandom, and I was like, I can't do this, but it's so good. Yeah. So I have it in my back pocket for whenever we do this again.
Cool. Which we will.
Absolutely.
Because fake dating is like one of those AUs that is just such a good
It's so good. That's about it. That's
an episode.
Yeah, that is an episode.
All right, on to the next.
Do we do an outro?
Bye.